Greetings to everyone, and thank you for joining us in Hyphens Haven, the space for multi-hyphenate artists who work on stage and off, in front of the camera and behind the scenes. We share our path to becoming who we are. This episode spotlights a New York City-based playwright whose work has been produced in theaters and festivals across the United States, including Seattle Rep, Roundabout, Portland Center Stage, Humana Festival, Greater Boston Theater Company, and off-Broadway at WP Theater. A few of her many achievements include New York Foundation for the Arts Fellowship, Weston Playhouse Music Theater Award, Massachusetts Cultural Council Fellowship, and the Will Glickman Award for Best New Play. So I am so thrilled and happy to introduce the multi-hyphenate artist, Liz Duffy Adams. Hi, Liz. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And as we want our audience to get to know who you are, we always begin at your foundation. So can you tell us about your parents or those who lovingly raised you and their names and professions?
I have to say, lovingly raised was not actually my life story, but I'm grateful for what they did give me. My mother's name was Gail Bonoff. She was the daughter of Irish and Ukrainian Jewish immigrants. And my father's name was John Quincy Adams. And you can imagine what his background was. Yeah. And I don't mean to be too dissy of them, but, as we like to say, they did their best, but they had obstacles.
Okay. Were you raised with siblings or any other particular family members?
Yes, I had two sisters, Nancy and Abigail, and a little brother, Charlie, and we were very close, and we still are close to this day.
Okay. Was there a particular childhood memory that you enjoyed with your siblings or close family relatives?
One thing that was wonderful is that we lived until I was 12. We lived on the outskirts of a small town, basically in the woods. We lived next to a state forest. So we had this tremendous freedom to roam around that I think most young people, nowadays didn't grow up with. I mean, we were just outside roaming around in the woods. There were creeks. We could make rafts. I mean, it was like a different century. Well, it was literally a different century. But that freedom and the time, a time before electronics, the time to daydream, to be imaginative, really helped form my life. And I'm really grateful for that.
Well, let's go back to your early learning days, your elementary school. Where did you attend? And was there a particular teacher that saw something special in you and loved on you in that way?
I was a very, very, very shy child in school, and I don't remember a single teacher's name. I don't remember a single teacher taking any notice of me in elementary school, but I had an amazing moment in the town library, in the school, in the children's department. My mother would take us every 2 weeks to the library, and I would read almost a book a day. I was a mad reader. And so I'd come up to the desk with a huge stack of books. And one day I came up, and a little boy who I didn't know was standing there, and he said, "You can only take out 2 books. You're only allowed to take out 2 books." And I was horrified. I didn't know there was a rule. And I looked up at the librarian in absolute horror, because how was I going to get through 2 weeks in my stressful family without being able to lose myself in books? And she looked down at us and she said, and I didn't know she knew my name. She said, "Elizabeth can take out as many books as she likes." And you can see how that hit me. I mean, I've never forgotten it. She was like the only grown-up in my childhood who seemed to really notice me and approve of me, and also give me permission to be me. And I mean, I wish I knew her name. She was a hero to me. I love her in retrospect.
That's wonderful. Was she there with you during your middle school years as well?
No. When I was 12, we moved. I guess that was 7th grade. We moved to a different town. And so sort of started over. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as you moved in, like in the middle, I guess, in the middle of middle school, as a seventh grader in this new space, was there any particular teacher or was there someone that you started to gravitate towards in that time?
You know, the first, we'll get to it. The first time I really connected with a teacher was in high school, but I did have, in seventh grade, I had another kind of really important moment that was sparked by a teacher who's, again, I don't remember his name, which I feel bad about now, but it was a long time ago. But it was an English class, and he assigned us to write a science fiction story. And I was steeped in science fiction. My parents subscribed to the science fiction book club. I'd been reading science fiction all my life. So I was like, oh, this is an assignment that I'm excited about. So, I wrote my heart out on this story, and we turned them in. And then the next day, he was asking kids to read them out loud. And a couple of other kids went, and I was like, oh, they're like ghost stories. That's not science fiction. They don't know what science fiction is. I was so surprised. And then he said, Elizabeth, please read yours. And I was horrified because I was very, very shy. And I was like, ah. And he was like, go ahead. And I started reading, and he was like, Elizabeth, you're going to have to speak up. So I pulled myself together and I started reading, and I got caught up in it. So my voice got stronger, and I really loved the story. I mean, it was not a great story, of course, but for seventh grade, science fiction, it wasn't terrible. But I read it with a lot of fervor. By the end, I forgot about being shy. I forgot about the other kids. And then when the class was over, and I was, again, shy. I had one friend, and she wasn't in that class. So I sort of, in a way, I was in my own head all the time. You know what I mean? I was very in my own world. I didn't notice, I didn't know their names, probably. I mean, I was a little extreme. I was a little morbidly shy. I might have been on the spectrum. I don't know. We didn't get tested in those days. But anyway, all my classmates clustered around me, and they were like, Liz, that was amazing. You're so good. You should be a writer. So you can see why I would remember that story. I mean, I was like, what just happened? So
that was seventh grade. So that was your first time having a response, affirming you that, hey, you actually have a natural ability and you should see what happens. So as we're transitioning, that was seventh grade, and now we're about to head to high school. You said that this was your first time that you connected with the teacher. Can you tell us about that moment of interacting with this soul?
Yeah, his name is John Qualters. And he joined in my freshman year, he joined the English department, and he had a theater background. So he became the drama teacher, which we hadn't had before. And I was interested in all the arts. I was writing poetry, and I was hanging out in the art room, and we did some sort of amateur theater stuff with our friends, and I'd come out of my shell by then. I had friends. And I joined we were called the Freaks, which sounds bad, but we were happy with it. We were the sort of offbeat kids, that any kid that's interested in the arts is going to relate to that. I'm sure you do.
Yes.
Yes. But then they hired this new teacher, John Qualters, and he started offering electives in having to do with the theater, and he formed a drama club. And he held auditions for the first show that they were going to do. And I ended up being cast in the lead. And I acted in every show. And he was so, I mean, again, I didn't think of myself as having any particular ability, but I auditioned for this play. And it was a Neil Simon play. So it had a very New York Jewish sense of humor, very wry, very sarcastic, and maybe because my mother was half Jewish, I could hear those cadences that this very, very, very white, Gentile, small town high school students did not have any relationship to and didn't hear. So I was sitting there listening to other kids audition. I'm like, what are you, that was sarcasm. No, you said that very earnest. You're not getting it. So I was like, so at one point he said, oh, Liz, get back up and read with so-and-so. That's your part, you know. So he cast me in front of everybody, to my surprise. You know, it was a delightful moment for me. It was like, oh my God, I just got cast in the lead, you know. So these are all little stories of being recognized, which we need, especially if our, you know, our parents don't recognize us, or, you know, other grownups don't, then it's just gold. When it happens, it just means so much to you. And he changed my life. He changed my life. He pointed me towards the theater.
Oh, wow. So what year did you meet him in high school? Was this your freshman year or sophomore year?
I think it was sophomore. And he also arranged for, I think that year or the following year, he arranged for a field trip to see a professional production. There was no theater. This is a small New England town. There was no theater there. And, you know, we were only 45 minutes from Boston, but nobody went into Boston, you know. And I'd never seen a play, maybe some children's theater. But it was a field trip to see Twelfth Night by Shakespeare at a professional theater. And I'd never experienced anything like it. And this was really my creation myth. This is my origin story, because I waited in that theater until it was empty. I waited till all the other kids went back to the buses, ushers were gone, it was completely empty. And when I walked down the stairs to the stage, which was the kind that was like on the floor, and there was a painted line to show what was stage and what was audience. And I took one step over the line onto the stage. Yeah, I was like, I don't know what this world is, but this is the world I want to belong to. And 3 years later, I was studying acting in New York.
Wow. So yes, so that moment literally carried you over, and you have now moved to New York. Where did you attend college?
I went to NYU.
Okay.
The Tisch, it's now called the Tisch School of the Arts, where you would study, if you were studying acting, you would study acting at a professional acting studio and do your academics at NYU. So I went to the Stella Adler Institute for 2 years, and then I transferred to the experimental theater wing. It was wonderful. It was fantastic.
Were there any particular productions during your time there that you can share with us that made an impact on you?
Well, my last year at the experimental theater wing, we were working with Anne Bogart, who was, this was early in her career. It was before she developed Viewpoints. Mary Overly was I think really the person who invented Viewpoints, and then Anne Bogart, and she was teaching there too. So they knew each other, they were working together. And then Anne took Viewpoints and went even further and created the City Company later. But she was younger than it might have been her first time teaching. And we, because in experimental theater, you know, very often you're writing, devising, creating work to perform. So it's a blurring of the line. It's very hyphenated. And so we our whole group of students collaborated and created this performance event, this production that we wrote together and performed together. And she was the director. And it was, I mean, I don't know objectively what I would feel if I were in the audience as an adult now, but we had the time of our lives. It was an extraordinary experience, and she was wonderful to work with.
And those who are listening, and you may want to look up Anne Bogart. You may not have seen my expression through Bogart. Definitely look her up. I think she's a director of City Theater now, or something like that. But she's a theater director, and you should absolutely get to know who Anne Bogart is. An amazing artist. So as you are working and learning and growing at NYU or Tisch School of the Arts, what propelled you towards your professional career? Because you're about to graduate. So what is pulling you towards that point, that next point?
Absolutely. Well, one thing I just want to mention, since you said, that a lot of young people listen to the podcast, when people talk about their careers, I think they always make it sound very linear, very point A to point B, and I made these decisions, and one thing led to another, but it's like a snarl of spaghetti, the way you find your path, and there are dead ends and wrong turns and lost time and things you do that you think were a disaster, and it's all good. It all leads you to where you need to be if you stay true to it. So I sort of wanted to mention that, because I'm afraid of sounding like I knew what I was doing. I did not know what I was doing. I loved experimental theater, and I loved classical theater. I also studied Shakespearean acting and classical theater. So after NYU, with other fellow students, friends of mine, we formed a theater company that lasted for like 10 minutes, but we did a production. And I was still studying classical acting on the side with a private teacher. And I was working in restaurants and spending my tip money on self-producing with my friends. This was back in the day when you could get rehearsal and performance space downtown in New York literally for free. Like, they'd give it to you for free, and you'd split the gate with them. You'd split the ticket prices with them, because it wasn't a commercially viable area then. It was a very art thriving, funky, slummy area, like the East Village, which is where I lived. Now it's one of the most expensive neighborhoods in New York, and young people cannot have that experience of being able to self-produce, just working at a greasy spoon and working with your friends. It was the best. I mean, it was an amazing time and very fruitful. So I was doing experimental theater, devised theater, creating work with people that I loved. And I was occasionally doing like off Broadway, hole in the wall classical productions. I played the first witch in Macbeth. It was one of my favorite parts. But eventually I didn't know how to build a life that way. Like, I didn't know how to have an art life. I didn't know anything about grants or, I couldn't keep on just waitressing and spending my money. You know what I mean? And I wasn't, and I tried being a mainstream actor. I tried, auditioning and, talking with agents and casting directors and all of that. And it was such a bad fit for me. I hated it. And I was kind of a short, funny looking, I had the charm of youth, but, I wasn't a leading lady. I wasn't a character actor. I didn't fit in the mainstream. And I lost my way. I didn't know what I was doing. And finally, I thought, I have got to get control of my creative process. I missed the days when I was an artist. I didn't know what I was anymore. And I had a actors support group that met every week, just, a group of actors who were friends who we'd meet every week and talk about our goals and encourage each other and hold each other accountable. So I said to them, I'm going to write a play, not for me to do. I'm not going back to that. I'm going to write a play for other people to do and see what that's like. So they encouraged me. Every week I brought pages in and they would read them out loud. And in a couple of months, I had written my first play, and I didn't know what to do with it. And a friend said, "Oh, send it to this theater downtown. They do new work." So I sent it to this little off Broadway theater called One Dream Theater. It's long gone now, in Tribeca. And an actress who was in the company picked it up off somebody's desk and read it and said, "I want to play that part." And so they produced it. So, and that was Edie Falco before, making the face again, but exactly, before she was famous. Edie Falco, brilliant actress of Nurse Jackie and The Sopranos. And and she was terrific in the part. So as soon as I wrote, so all the doors that had been shut in my face as an actor, the life, New York and the theater world, it was an unrequited love. It did not love me back. And then when I wrote a play, the door instantly flung open. And I thought, this is the path. This is the way. So with that play, I applied to grad schools. I got into Yale School of Drama. And I thought, I'm just going to go and just think about playwriting for the next 3 years and figure it out.
So how was your experience at Yale? Was there a particular teacher or production there that even influenced you more?
Yeah, it was another turning point. It was absolutely a lucky break, because the first person I studied with there, so he was the first person I ever studied playwriting with, was Mac Wellman, who is an absolutely brilliant experimental playwright whose work I already loved, and also famously an amazing teacher of playwriting. He's launched so many playwrights into the world, because it's not about this is how you write a play, and it's not write plays like me. It's what's your voice, what, in a incredibly undidactic way, giving you permission to be yourself. I mean, one piece of advice he gave me, which sounds maybe not good, was you need to be more arrogant. And he didn't mean be a jerk in life. He meant in my work. Like you are the God of the world you create on the page, and you have to have the arrogance to not be timid with that, to own your voice, to make the choices even if you think they're bad choices. He absolutely helped me on my way enormously.
Well, I received that.
Yeah.
That was a word. Thank you for even remembering that from your teacher to pass on to us.
Yeah.
I received that. Be more arrogant in your art. I love that. So as you are working your way through Yale, and they were magical 3 years, what is now pulling you beyond Yale? What's that next step for you?
I found that I loved writing plays. I found that I had absolutely found where I needed to be, that it was perfect for me, that I could be alone and imaginative and creative, and then I could go into a room with other people and collaborate, and that is the best of both worlds. So the 1 a year, 3 productions I had of work that I was writing there, 2 of those 3 plays ended up being published. They're still published, and occasionally produced in a small way. They've both had some small productions, and it was it just made me so happy. So my goal coming out of Yale was simply continue to find my way into the wider world doing this. And I got into the Playwrights Lab at the Women's Project Theater. Now it's just called WP Theater, and just kept writing plays and sending them into the world. And the fun thing about when you I have this sort of like little weird, sometimes flash fantasy that I throw like a javelin and it goes zoop, and then there's a rope tied to it, and then I go flying after it. You know what I mean? Like I throw it and then it pulls me into the sky. I don't know. It's this little image that comes to me, and that's what it's like being a playwright.
Do you recall your feeling of your first major work produced post Yale?
Oh God, yeah. Well, absolutely. I think I'm trying to think which came first. I mean, I had a kind of a wobbly next experience with a production that didn't go well. So I don't think I'll dwell on that, except to say, sometimes it doesn't go well. And part of the reason it didn't go well is that they didn't want to use my director, the director that I was already working with. They wanted to work with a different director, and I should have said, I don't think this is going to be the right choice, and it's okay if you don't want to produce the play, but I think I need to stick to my director and just let the production go. What I learned from this, which is very valuable, is a bad production is worse than no production. It genuinely is. And, especially when you're young, you want the actors, you want to be up, you want it so badly that it doesn't sound like it could possibly be true, that anything would be better than nothing. But it's hurtful to have your work done badly, and to mess it up yourself because it's the wrong situation, because you're not working with the right people. It's okay to step back and say, I think this is going to be, yeah. But anyway, after that, I had the play that the first play that was my first professional production of a Yale play. But then after Yale, I wrote another new play and sent it to the Bay Area Playwrights Festival in San Francisco. And they did a workshop of it. And as a result of that, a company in San Francisco called Shotgun Players, who were great, they produced it, they premiered it. And it was an absolutely wonderful experience. I made lifelong friends. The set director was really just an artist, and we loved her. And he's like, okay, you've never designed a set before, but we'll help you. And, I was on the set helping to paint it. And, she and I are still friends. And it was an extraordinary experience. When something that was inside your head is suddenly outside of you, walking around, speaking, it's, I've kind of gotten used to it, but especially in the beginning, it's just the most extraordinary feeling. It's like magic. It feels like literal magic. Like you have some kind of superpower that makes your brain thoughts walk around in the world, and I adore actors, and I love working with actors. So yeah, that was called Dog Act, by the way. And that's the play that won the Will Glickman Award for Best New Play. It's a San Francisco Bay Area award voted on by the local critics, the critics of the Bay Area. And so it felt really, again, I felt welcomed in, which is a wonderful feeling.
And affirmed that you were experiencing all of this magic. So now you're in the position of having produced a number of plays. Would you share your process of how you go from idea to, if there are particular tools that you like to use to get into your comfy place? Please share.
Everybody has their own process. And it's always important to know that some people like to say, this is how you do it, right? And anybody that's saying there is one way to do it, know that they're talking about what works for them, and they don't necessarily understand that it's broader than that. For me, I tend to work in terms of a really long gestation period and then a much shorter actual writing period. So I need a lot of time, and I've tried to challenge that, and it is good to challenge, and it's good to try other ways. But I found that my best work tends to be made this way, which is a long time of, I've got a very nascent idea. I've got a little faint idea. I think it's something to do with this, and I'm going about my life. Years can go by. I'm thinking, oh, that connects to that idea. That connects to that idea. Making notes, trying to push at it. Like, am I ready to write this play yet? Who are the, what is the story? What is the, I'm not ready yet. Keep thinking about it. And then when the time is right, I can write really fast. And I think the most extreme version of this was a play, my most produced play, which is called Or, O-R, comma. It's a terrible title. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And when the play, inside the play, you get all these explanations for why it's called Or, and the audience always loves that, but it's a tough title because you can't Google it. And then you always have to explain how it's spelled. Anyway, this is my most produced play, and I thought about it for 10 years, and then I wrote it in 10 days. The time was so right, and the circumstances were so supportive that I was able to go into sort of a hyper focus and crank it out. I mean, I did some rewrites after that. That was the first draft, but because I think so for such a long time about it, and then I write in a hyper focus, almost altered state, really in the zone. My first drafts tend to be pretty close to my final drafts. I know lots of people that write really raw material first, and then the revisions are really where the writing happens. But for me, I sort of get there in the first draft, get a lot of the way there, like 75% or more. And that's just what works for me.
So once a play is completed, what is the process for copywriting or sending it to, how does that work?
Yeah, it's a gradual process, you, generally speaking, the first thing is you need to hear it. You need to hear actors read it. So if you're in a world where actors, especially if you're in school, if you're in college or whatever, then you're friends. It's the perfect situation. If you're out in the world, you have either you have friends who you like, come over, I've got a bottle of wine, read my play, or there are lots of professional situations. You go to a theater you work with, or a playwrights organization that you're a member of, and you say, I need to hear this play, and you get and you, ideally, in a perfect world, you do pay the actors at least a little bit to do the reading because they're working, but you don't have to pay them a huge amount because it's part of the process. But you do, like, it's good to pay them. She's not going to stop bothering. I'm sorry. There's a cat here now, but we're going to pretend she's not here.
Beautiful black cat who has just joined us. Beautiful.
Her name
coat.
is Queen Mab. She's mad at me for ignoring her. She's fine. Okay, run away. She will only do that if I'm talking and I'm not talking to her. She feels dissed. Okay, so finding a way to have a reading. Another way to get a reading is submitting the play to festivals and conferences where that's what that's about. They workshop the play, they'll have readings of the play, and when you do that, you do want to be sure that the play is ready to be out in the world. I like to have a private reading first to really hear it, because once you've written it, there's sort of a moment where you no longer know what it is, in a funny way. Like, what it is while you're writing it, and then it's outside of you. You don't know what it is anymore. And then when the actors read it, the actors give it back to you. It's like alchemy. So you want to hear it. And again, if you don't have access to actors, if you have friends who are good readers, you have fellow writers who are good readers, you should have a writing group if you're writing, which again can just be get some friends together who also are writing, and read each other's work out loud. That will do it too. And then it's a matter of getting it out into the world. And it's a very gradual process. When you're just starting out, you don't know anybody, they don't know you. When you say you have a new play and you're brand new, you send it to all the new play festivals, right? And there's this Bay Area, there's Playpen, there's Great Plains Conference, there's the O'Neill, but you have to pay to apply. So there's a lot of them, and theaters that have reading series and so on. And you may not hear anything back at first. You may not get any of them. But what's good to know is that every one of those places you send it to have a panel of people who are reading the submissions. And there might be people who are like, oh, I liked that. Oh, mental note, Drea Lewis. Ooh, I'm going to remember that name. That's the way that you begin to join the community. So you should not despair if you send your work out. And I don't mean you, I know you're, yeah, you're people who are listening, because it's an incremental process. When I first came to New York to study acting, Stella Adler, the long gone but brilliant actress and teacher, she told us it takes 10 years to build a career, and it was an important thing for a group of 18-year-olds to hear. It's like, slow your roll. If you're the child of movie stars, it's not going to take 10 years. If you get incredibly lucky, it's not going to take 10 years, but it takes time because you need to build up the momentum. So it's an invisible process, which you have to trust it, and you have to love it. You have to enjoy it. Any way that you can make work with your friends, instead of just asking permission for your work to be done. You know what I mean? More than just sending your work out into the world. If there's any way to do poor theater, to do basement theater, garage theater, whatever space you have access to, with people that you know, with your peers, with the people that are all eager and creating work together, it's incredibly helpful, because everybody makes bad work when they start out. It's part of the process. It's great to get all that bad work. And I say bad with love, bad plays are my jam, like when I'm stuck, I'm like, oh, write it badly. And then that frees me. So finding ways to not just be out there saying, nobody wants to produce my work. It's a crowded field. It's a mess. You got to find your people, find your theatrical homes, be patient, just keep going, keep writing. I don't even remember what the question was. Did I answer it?
Yes, as we're talking about process and what is for you, did you join a union like Dramatists Guild?
I eventually joined the Dramatists Guild, and sadly, the Dramatists Guild is not a union. Playwrights aren't allowed legally to have a union because, let's see if I get this right. It would be, there's an illegal thing where people club together and secretly set conditions. I can never remember what it's called, because playwrights are not employees. They're not workers. They own the rights. They're I'm bad with this vocabulary, but because you keep the rights to your work. Collective bargaining. No, but collective bargaining isn't bad, is it? See, I'm getting this mixed up. For decades, the Dramatists Guild has been lobbying Congress to make an exception for playwrights from whatever this law is. And there are precedents. It should be possible, but you can imagine that Congress never seems to feel that the playwrights are a priority. It's a pretty small demographic. So we've not yet succeeded, but eventually, yes, joining the Dramatists Guild, joining other organizations. Because of COVID, a bunch have gone under. There are fewer than there were, but I'm sure new ones will be created in the coming time. But I joined New Dramatists. New Dramatists is a playwrights organization in New York, and I applied and got in on my third try, which was pretty good. It's really hard to get into because it's so wonderful. And I wish everybody could be a member. You get a 7-year residency. And it's the building is an old church in the theater district. And you get workshops and readings. They will pay the actors. You can say, hey, I've got a play, I want to book a reading, and they'll help you organize it. It's a community of playwrights. It's a library where all the plays are up on the shelves, and there's free coffee. The library is open to the public, so anybody can stop in. Well, because of COVID, it's been closed for a couple of years, but they're starting gradually to reopen. It's a very old building, and they cannot afford the millions it would take to upgrade the air system, so it's a problem now in the age of COVID, but hopefully eventually the library will be back open. So it was a place you could, it was my home away from home. It was my theatrical home. And I love still being an alumni. I was a member from 2001 to 2008, and made, again, lifelong friends and collaborators, running into actors, directors, designers, other playwrights there. And if there's anything like that anybody out there can join or create for yourselves, it's really important to have community. And not allow yourself to be too isolated. It's easy to get isolated. It's easy to, So for me, I was starting to feel a little isolated in New York. I wasn't sure where I was going from that point. And then I got into New Dramatists, and I had a home again, and I had a community, and it was wonderful.
There's something called New Play Exchange.
Yes.
How you've heard of that? How do you have any connections to New Play Exchange?
Absolutely. New Play Exchange was started by playwright Gideon Sullivan. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. He spells his name in the old Gaelic spelling. So it doesn't look like Gideon Sullivan, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Anyway, he created this website, New Play Exchange. It's incredible. I was a beta tester, so I got in on the ground floor, but and I'm not sure how much it costs per year, but I know it's a very small amount of money. It's a very modest fee. And if you join it, you have a profile page. You can list You put in your bio. You list all your plays. You can allow people to download the entire play, or you can allow them to download an example of it. You have all the information for all the plays. So it's a way you don't even, I mean, I have a website, but you don't have to have a website and have a presence in the theater world, because, dramaturgs, artistic directors, everybody joined, because it's this incredible resource. I don't know how many playwrights are on there now, but thousands and thousands and thousands of plays and playwrights. I got a production out of my new play exchange page. They were looking, because you put in keywords, so they're looking for a certain kind of a play, and they found mine. They're like, yeah, that one. So and also you can read other people's plays. You read and recommend them. You write little mini reviews of each other's work, only positive, because it's about like holding each other up. It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful virtual place for playwrights. It's great.
Are there 3 artists or playwrights that you would particularly like to work with, or, just have, these are 3 playwrights that, those who are listening, that they should also pay attention to?
Well, it's funny. You mentioned this question because you gave me some hints of questions you'd be asking, and I didn't take it as necessarily playwrights, because you said artists.
Oh, yes. Well, or artists.
Yeah. So that's what I thought about. Well, I don't, playwrights don't really get to work with each other very much, but artists, I'm going to mention 3 living artists whose work resonates for me. And I would love to work with them in some way. The first one is Carol Churchill. She's an English playwright. She is the greatest living playwright in the English language. Carol Churchill, an amazing, well, she's a genius. She's one genius. And I don't have any way of, I will never work with her. I will never have any, but I would mention her, somebody whose work resonates and inspires. The novelist, Emily St. John Mandel, she's a Canadian novelist whose work I love. She wrote the novel Station 11 that was adapted into a series. Beautiful, beautiful work. And Janelle Monáe. Now, see, there, I'd love to work with her, because I'd like to write an opera with her, with and for her. I don't imagine that will ever happen, but, I resonate with her. She has a science fiction angle, Afrofuturism, which obviously I can't entirely engage with, being awfully white, but I adore it. I adore her work, admire her enormously. And so, yeah, can you imagine? I would love to write the book. She would do this music and the lyrics for an opera. Or somebody like Harry Styles. Why? He's got heart. He's a beautiful, beautiful artist. He's got heart and style. And I'd write an opera for Janelle Monáe and Harry Styles together. I don't know. That would be an opera. But in terms of other playwrights whose work I love, Anne Washburn is an American playwright whose work I love. She wrote a play called Mr. Burns that is absolutely brilliant. Lynn Nottage, Susan Laurie Parks, who I also studied with very briefly in grad school. She came up for one semester. She is another great living American playwright. Somebody I couldn't admire more. And she's had such an interesting trajectory. But yes, Carol Churchill, Lynn Nottage, Anne Washburn, who did I just say? Susan Laurie Parks. These are people that if anybody doesn't know their work, there you go. Just dig in.
So many names you just shared. Thank you. That was more.
I went overboard.
For those who want to pursue this, they have a lot of names and get to work, get in this research. So what is your professional goal as you are in this position? You have something that you want to look forward to. What are you aiming towards?
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I say I don't have goals. I have dreams, because as a playwright, again, you make the work, you send it out there, and then you don't really have much control over it. However, I have a play that's running right now at the Guthrie Theater called Born with Teeth. And it premiered last year at the Alley Theater and in Houston. And that entire production, the actors, the design, the director, they took the whole production and brought it to the Guthrie. I just came back from there, from the opening, and it's a beautiful production that I'm crazy about. I'm crazy about all the people involved in it. And there are other theaters that are interested in actually taking that production and bringing it to their theater. It's kind of unusual. It's partly because it's a relatively inexpensive play, because it's only 2 characters. So you only have to pay 2 actors. So everybody's struggling right now because of COVID. Theater is struggling. So to have a ready-made production that isn't terribly expensive, that is getting, I'm sorry, I have to say, amazing reviews, and yeah, and big love from the audience, and it's very marketable. It's kind of turning out to be something. So part of my goal right now is to continue to work with that, to continue to do whatever I can to pave the way for this production, not just the play itself, but this particular group of people in this production. And then apart from that, I've got, 2 different plays, an adaptation and a new play in the back of my head that I'm starting to work on. And one of them is just the beginning of a long percolation. I'm not saying the right, gestation. I'll say that. And the adaptation is faster because it's an adaptation of a classic work. So the story's already there. And that's just sort of like, it's sort of like doing a puzzle. It's not fast, but it's, it's sort of a different part of your brain. So I'm working on those. And my goal, I guess, would be that I end up finishing them and they end up getting produced.
Okay. Well, we are coming to the part of the show where we're going to ask a couple of quick fire questions. Well, some of them may not, but it's still fun to get to know you more as an individual. So I'm going to ask those questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Cats or dogs? Well, I think I already know this.
Yes, but I love them both. I adore dogs. I've written plays about dogs, but I live with cats. I can't be doing with the drag me outside all the time that you have to do with dogs.
Got it. Would you prefer a window or aisle seat?
Aisle, because freedom.
Okay. What book would you give as a gift?
Actually, I already mentioned it, Station 11. I love that book.
Okay. What movie could you not resist watching if it came on right now?
So many, but I will mention A Hard Day's Night, the Beatles movie.
Excellent. What is your favorite recipe to cook?
It's not exactly a recipe. It's more improvisational, but it's called pantry pasta, which is when you take whatever you've got in the pantry or the fridge and you just make it into a thing with pasta.
We'll try the pantry pasta. Okay.
It's so much fun. You just go in and see, what have I got? How would this go together? Oh, it's fun.
Like a smorgasbord of things.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I'm going to try that out. What is your favorite word?
I got a bunch, but one word I use a lot is fabulous. And the reason I love fabulous is it's sort of double meaning. It's of course, it's fabulous. It's got a vibe, so good. But it also has what is now almost a secret meaning, because what it really means is rooted in fable or myth. So everything I love is in this word, fabulous.
Fascinating. Okay.
Well, you asked.
Oh, thank God. Yeah. Okay. What makes you laugh the most?
The unexpected.
Okay. What would be your theme song or your ring entrance song into any particular room? If it just came on, here is Liz.
Well, right now, the one that comes to mind is Free by Florence and the Machine, which begins, sometimes I wonder if I should be medicated.
Okay. These questions, I tell you, if you could choose one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I don't want to say mermaid, become a mermaid, because that's such a cliche. I don't want the long hair and the clamshell, bra, but to be a mer person, to be able to instantly enter into any body of water and be transformed such that I could withstand cold, I could swim powerfully, and I could breathe underwater. I just want to be able to swim year-round everywhere.
Wow, that is a superpower. It kind of makes me think of that movie Splash with Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah.
Yeah, but I would never be that, particular fabulous Daryl Hannah mermaid.
So if you have this superpower, that you have this mermaid ability, who would be your anti person who's against you?
It would be Mr. Jet Ski.
Smart.
Dr. Jet Ski. I don't know. Dr. Evil Jet Ski.
I like that. Who is your favorite person to follow on social media?
For the most part, like on Twitter, I follow political writers and activists, and I don't really I just, it's sort of a landscape rather than individuals. However, Vinnie Thomas, incredibly funny guy who I do follow on Instagram and Twitter. He made a video called the Galactic Federation Interviews Earth for membership. It is the funniest, sharpest. He's amazing, and I think he's writing for TV now. He's tremendous. Yeah.
I will go and follow this person. This is my first time hearing of this. Yeah.
I swear you're gonna love him. He's also really adorable.
And he's fabulous.
Yes, he's fabulous.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
I would like to be less terrorized by email. I would just like to be like, email makes me so anxious, and it's really wastes a lot of time. That's off the top of my head. I don't know if that's a good answer, but
No, yeah. I mean, I too am bombarded with emails. I think I have over some 20-something thousand unopened just collectively. I just, I completely relate. What piece of advice would you offer yourself in your younger years?
I think I would like to offer young me the advice to lighten up, have fun. I mean, I did have fun, but it was sort of intense fun, sort of have faith. It is all going to be okay. And you cannot believe that, but honest to God, it is. It's okay to enjoy the ride. It doesn't all have to be a state of emergency.
Yeah, I received that too. Yes, I thank you for that one. So as we're coming to the end, is there some shout outs, or there's some love you want to show some people who've been supportive of you on your journey?
Oh my goodness, yes. Well, my sisters, Nancy and Abby, are really, they're two of my best friends. I've got a couple of different writing groups of people who are also dear friends, and Ellen Kushner, Delia Sherman, Joel Durfner, Claire Cooney, Carlos Hernandez, Andrea Kuchluska, Kristen Palmer, Liz Appel. That's just a start. And also right now, Rob Melrose, who's the director of Born with Teeth at the Guthrie and at the Alia, who is an old friend of mine. We went to grad school together. So another piece of advice is you will meet people that you will work with for the rest of your life, even when you're young. So, hold on to those relationships, cherish them. And he's been a tremendous supporter of my work, and has really, so all those people I love, and many more.
And I just believe in, if there's an opportunity to give people their flowers, that's why I ask that, let people know that these people have, been supportive and, showered you with love. And I have one more question before we go. How can people follow you on social media?
Okay. Well, I'm not good at social media, but I am on Insta and Facebook and Twitter as Liz Duffy Adams. So you can find me pretty easily. I also do have a website. It's very simple, but I keep it updated with info, what's going on, and that's lizduffyadams.com. Yeah, I don't think I'm fun to follow on social media, but I do my best. I'm there.
But it'll be a way for our, I know the students who are listening, a way to just see and connect with you, and if they have questions, to send you a message through those
Absolutely. And I love talking with young people. I teach sometimes. I'm very open because it's a cliche, but you're the future, they're the future, and I want to be there in the future in their hearts, if I can be. And can I say, before you end it, what a pleasure. And now I really want to turn around and ask you all the same questions, which I know is not part of the format, but thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. And as she's just said, we're coming to the end of this moment, but we hope that you have enjoyed the spotlight for today's artist. If this podcast has helped you, please share. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to Dream of Drea across all social media platforms. My name is Drea of Dream of Drea, a production company specializing in driving ideas from pages to stages and from your dreams to screens. Remember, wherever you are right now is the perfect time to act on your dreams. Thanks again to Liz Duffy Adams, this amazing and fabulous playwright.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, take care.